My name is Sipiwo Nzaumbi. Now, just last week, we bid farewell to our most beloved host, Tumelo Motutwane, as she left to pursue her career overseas. Now, as you all know, Tumelo Motutwane hosted Sunday Live for the past 3 years, and I know you will miss her dearly, just like myself. We wish her all the best in her new career endeavors. But you have not been left alone. Tonight, I'm going to be a host as we discuss adoption. Now, South Africa is home to more than 4 million orphans. This is according to a research conducted by the National Adoption Coalition. Now, over 200 babies are abandoned every month, mainly due to teenage pregnancy and HIV and AIDS. But only 2,000 children are adopted each year. This means the rate in which children are adopted is far lower and does not even come close to the reducing the amount of children without parents. Now, today you ask you a question. Is there enough awareness to educate South Africans about adoption? You can engage us on social media. Go and check our Facebook page, and that is Sunday Live on SABC1. And then tweet us at Sunday Live on SABC1. Rather, just tweet me directly at Sipiwo Nzaumbi and then hashtag Sunday Live. Now, before we get into our discussion, here's an insert prepared for you.
Bubbly, confident, and happy, 19-year-old Monica today is a very different girl to the one who spent 5 years of her teens at a home called Oasis Haven.
They gave me a home and they gave me family, and they were very welcoming. So doing things that a normal family would do. So outside, people look at you weirdly that, oh, you're from a children's home, you're different from us. But when you look at it closely, you're actually all the same. It's on how people view it, being in a children's home.
But life had a different plan for her when at almost 18 years old, she met Tracy O'Connor, who would become her adoptive mother.
At church, I was in her circle of friends, and she was just telling them of how she wanted to adopt 2 younger children, and she was waiting for the paperwork so she can take them. And then I'm like, why children? Why babies when you can take an older child? Like, I'm open, okay? I'm up for selections. And then I was just joking with her and I walked away. But for her, it made a big impact. And she just came home and she prayed about it and signed up to be my science teacher. And that went well. And then she came back and signed up to be my big sister. And then as we were studying one day, she couldn't hold it anymore. And then she just broke down in tears and she was just like, I actually am planning to adopt you. All my prayers and thoughts of getting out of the home were just dead. So I was just like, oh, whatever. She's just playing games with me. And then it took, I think, about a month for me to actually believe her. She kept on saying, I am going to be your mother. You do not have to suffer anymore. I am going to take care of you and I'm going to love you endlessly. And I was like, this lady, can you stop playing games with me? I've heard those lines so many times that right now they're just the wind. I went through a hard time. Back at the children's home, what I did was come home and sleep. My life has changed. I have insomnia now, which means that sleeping is like the last thing in my mind. But also I do not mind because I have so much to do that sleep is it's like a nap. She has believed in me and in things that I thought I would never do. Even my grandparents are amazing. I love them. And they have changed my life of how I see people, how I see white people and how they interact with the black children, and how they love and they see no color and they see no difference between you. They just see a beautiful soul and a beautiful child, and they just want to spend time with you. And that's what I felt. I felt like I was family. It's not only you having a child and you being a mother or a father. It's you changing one's life. It's you giving that child hope that, hey, there is a better tomorrow. And I do have that chance because I do have a family out there who is going to look at me and be like, I love you and I want you to be my child and I choose you. And no matter the circumstances, I want you.
Such a beautiful story. Now, joining me in studio this evening is Griselda Boone, a social worker at Johannesburg Child Welfare. And just next to her is Robin Wolfson Foster, an adoption, or rather adoption advocate, transracial adoptive mom. And also, you know, she's part of that beautiful story we saw right on the inset. Ladies, welcome to Sunday Live.
Thank you.
Now, let's start with you. Let's start with you, Griselda. 4 million orphans in South Africa. Now, that's quite huge. How big is this problem?
It is, thanks, Pure. It is quite a huge problem. We have a lot of children that are orphaned, but also I think a large number of the children that we have are children that are abandoned, and therefore we don't have families, we don't have anyone who can claim responsibility for those children. And as a result, those are the children that need permanent placements.
And on a daily basis, what kind of cases do you deal with? I saw, you know, the beautiful story of Robin and her daughter, but what other cases do you deal with, especially of children who are in need of security and of a space, a haven that is away from abuse and torture?
Okay. We deal with it in twofold, so I'll start with the children first. So what happens on a daily basis, we have children that are brought to our offices who have been found abandoned many different places by police, by the community members, and then therefore we then need to find alternative placement for them first, and then work with them to prepare them for adoption. But also we have the other children whose parents come to our offices to give them up for adoption. For one reason or another, they can't look after them, you know, they're financially not stable, their families don't know about the pregnancies, and so they would come to us and say, I want to give my child up for adoption. So those are the children that we work with. And then on the other side, we then have people who are looking to adopt. Adoptive parents come from many different aspects and backgrounds. So you have from your top CEOs to your domestic worker who want to come and adopt, and we don't discriminate on anyone. So we actually just accommodate anybody who comes to us.
Robin, first let me commend you for, you know, for such beautiful act, or rather deed, of embracing a soul and you know, creating a home for your daughter. But just take us through, firstly, what inspired you, you know, to go for adoption?
Well, my husband and I struggled for many years with infertility, and we were blessed with a biological son, but thereafter we really weren't able to have any more children. And for me, it was a huge need. I was desperate to have particularly a daughter. And it was such a special process for us of embracing the idea that maybe that child would not be a biological child, but she would nonetheless be our child. And I know my husband was very nervous because he adores his son and his 2 daughters from his first marriage, and was quite concerned about would he be able to love a child who was adopted as much as a biological child. And what I find incredible is that for both of us, it has been such a wonderful, life-affirming process.
I mean, you can see she's beaming with smiles on the inside.
From the moment our daughter arrived in our house, she was part of the family. She was adored. She was as much my daughter as my son is my son. And it's something that our entire family and our entire community has embraced as well. So for us, adoption has been a love affair.
Well, I guess South Africa, you have heard it. Our poll question this evening is asking you, do you think that enough information is given about adoption? You can call us right here in the studio. The number is 011 714 8080. Sunday Live will continue after this. Stay with us.
I think it's been an incredibly joyful journey for us. A lot more, I suppose nobody can ever explain to you how rewarding parenting is anyway. But I think there's something extra special about adopting.
You don't realize how big and different color differences until you adopt interracially, and it really has just opened up my world to different cultures and seen the world through different eyes, and knowing it's not all peachy, but it's great and it's colorful.
I think parenting full stop is scary, and having had a biological daughter, I think I'm aware of how little one really is in control of a lot of things that come across their paths. You walk into the home and, you know, you get handed this little thing, and of course they handed him to me first because I'm the mom, and it's all this sort of, oh, you know, now I've got to be all mothering, and felt that expectation on me. And Yeah, I can't say there was an emotional response initially. It was more a head decision. It was kind of like, this little guy needs a home and we want to be parents. This is a no-brainer. Of course we'll take him. Children have an amazing ability to adapt, and so do adults. You don't have to be special. You just have to have a lot of love and be open to differences. And at the end of the day, you don't see color. You just enjoy the children and how they see the world.
But I've said to her, sometimes people are not going to like you for the colour of your skin. People sometimes don't like me for the colour of my skin. But know that God made you the way you are, and that's all that matters, as long as you love yourself.
Every now and then you think about what their life could have been, and it just gives you even more joy, I think. Well, I'm biased. But yeah, just to think that they're loved and they have a mom and a dad and they get hugged and, you know, they have opportunities ahead of them. I think as a society, we are encouraged to get involved with the needs around us. And it is a huge challenge for South Africa, huge challenge. So whether we go and visit a home, get involved financially, get involved with spending time or mentoring children, to obviously the pinnacle would be adopting a child yourself.
Well, remember that you can also be a part of us right in studio by calling us on 011 714 8080. Our poll question this evening is, do you believe there is enough awareness that is given to South Africans about adoption? Now, Criselda, before the break, was still just getting into, you know, the nitty-gritties of adopting and how big the problem is, but there seems to be a bit of reluctancy from black parents, you know, when it comes to adoption. Why is that so?
I think some of the reasons, stem back from the past, where people, as a black community, we've always had adoption, although it wasn't legalized per se, where people would, if somebody dies in the community would come in, look after the child, family members will look after children. So you still find that people are reluctant to actually go through the legal process, and just by hearing it's a legal process scares people a lot. But I think the good thing with the Children's Act is that it's opened up adoption quite a lot, in that we can consider a whole variety of people. You can adopt as a single parent. You can adopt if you're in a same-sex relationship, or even as a family. So if you're living with your sister in the same house, the two of you can come and adopt. As long as you form a unit, a family unit, then the Act allows you to adopt. But also the other good thing is that the Act also says that we cannot discriminate against people because of their financial circumstances. So as I said, we have your street vendors who come through to adopt.
So people from the lowest to the highest?
From the lowest to the highest.
Wow.
And I know that people sometimes say that the cost of adoption is very high.
Exactly.
And, you know, I think that is a myth in itself. You can get some escalated prices, but I think as agencies, we try and accommodate everybody to look at how we support people to go through the process.
Robin, how difficult was it for you, especially because you adopted a black child, being a white mother? How difficult was it? Difficult perhaps to adjust as, you know, mother-to-child relationship, and especially around the society?
Well, I think for us, it actually was something that we'd engaged with a lot during the process, because it's something that you have to think about. Just based on the demographics in South Africa, we understood from the start that our child was probably going to be black. And actually, I have to say that for us, it wasn't an issue at all. And we understand that she might struggle with some things going forwards, because possibly she might have issues regarding identity, and obviously we are trying our best to be able to give her some exposure to her cultural heritage, and certainly wonderful role models across races.
But how long did the process take for you? Because I do understand that, I mean, I'm sure, Criselda, you know this, that a lot of people, you know, would be put on waiting lists for years. One would apply for a child and then they would only be able to get the child like 3 years later. How long did it take for you?
There are a lot of horror stories around the adoption process, and I think it is a big deterrent for a lot of people. But what I found was that actually the process of being screened is relatively pain-free. So there's lots of admin associated with it. You've got to get police clearances and medicals and that kind of thing, all of which is fundamental for social workers to make the right decision for a child. But actually the process of being screened and matching is relatively pain-free and relatively quick. What we found is that the legal process and the process of then getting our daughter's name changed and that kind of thing was a bit more challenging. But at that point, she was ours.
Right.
And I can say all parents would say they would do anything for their children at that point.
I also understand that as young as 19, you can adopt a child.
Yes, the Children's Act says that you have to be 18 years or above to adopt a child.
Have you had a 19-year-old mom or dad who would, like, you know,
I
come
think
for
we've
adoption?
had a 22-year-old that has come through. We haven't had really the 19, 20-year-olds. But also, as I said, we cannot discriminate. So anyone can come through. However, what we then need to do is to go through the process to make sure that you are fit and proper to be entrusted
And
with
by
the
fit and
child's
proper,
life.
what do you say exactly? Or what do you mean? Is it checking the financial affordability or the haven, the home that I'm going to create for this child?
It's the whole lot. So the screening looks at you as a person. Who are you? You know, what makes Sipiwe who he is? We then would talk to family. We do reference checks. We do look at the home because we have to ensure that it's safe for the child. We do police clearances. Obviously, we need to make sure that people that are taking the children are not going to harm them. But we also check against the National Child Protection Register to prevent pedophiles and sex offenders from coming forward to adopt children. So those would be the processes that we check, and we do medical checks as well, just to make sure that you're healthy enough.
Well, what do you think? Let us know. We're so interested to hear from you right here on the show. Mhlambe nawe-ke ucinga uba uyozifumanela umntwana through an adoption process. You've got all the chance to ask all the questions right here on the show. The number is 011-714-8080. Or rather, just go and engage us on social media. On Twitter, you'll find our Twitter handle. That is at Sunday Live on SABC One. Or rather, tweet me directly at Sipiwo Nzawumbi and hashtag Sunday Live. After the break, we'll continue with our discussion. Stay with us. Well, welcome back. You're still watching Sunday Live right here on SABC One in Mzansi for sure. Today we're asking the question, do you believe or feel there's enough awareness to equip South Africans about adoption? You can participate and be a part of us right here in studio. The number is 011-714-8080. And also on social media, I'm looking at those messages as they're coming through. So do not be reluctant. Just send them through. Now, before the break, Griselda, you were still telling us about 19-year-olds being able, to adopt children and, just looking at the affordability. But I'm just trying to look at this from the perspective of a young mother, especially, a child or one who has had a child as a result of a teenage pregnancy. Do you have enough information to ensure that those who wouldn't like to keep children do know, the available procedure of taking the child to the centers?
Okay. Yes, the National Adoption Coalition of South Africa last year in June launched the crisis pregnancy campaign, which is to help young teenagers who find themselves pregnant and are in a crisis and don't know what to do. We also have a mixed group as part of that, and a phone line as well, where people can phone in and be put in touch with a social worker who would counsel them about all options available to them, because there's a number of options, including whether the family could assist and looking at other ways that, we can assist the teenager to keep the child. If it all fails, then we can assist them in consenting for the baby and give them counseling throughout the process, just so that they're not left hanging. And also as a result, as a way of trying to avoid having a large number of abandoned babies.
But with this information being available on the ground, have you seen perhaps the number of abandoned children going down, or is it still going up, escalating?
It's still going up. However, the crisis pregnancy helpline is receiving a lot of SMSs, calls, and mixed interactions on a monthly basis. So when they do the stats, you can see that young people are engaging with the process. But I think the issue of abandoned babies, that is still going up, unfortunately.
And in terms of, just making sure that you fasten the process of adoption, because a lot of people, they shun away because they don't want to be waiting for 3 years. And, some even end up resorting for an informal kind of, adoption or rather exchange process. what are you doing as their department, as welfare also to ensure that, you know, you speed up the process of application?
Yeah, I think as Robin said, the screening process doesn't really take long. It takes anything between 4 and 6 months, again, depending on people's availability. And then people would then go on the waiting list. Now, the waiting list varies because, again, people, when they come, we give you an option to tell us the type of child you would like to have.
Okay.
So sometimes that might mean that people are on the waiting list for much longer. But again, we try. Some people are just on the waiting list for 2 weeks and then the baby is placed with them. But then you
So
do
it
have...
depends from situation
depends,
to...
but I think on average, the whole adoption process could take anything up to about 9 months on average for you to have the child.
Robin, just quickly before we close, what words, or rather, how would you encourage a mother who's watching right now, or a young father who'd like to go and adopt a child? How would you inspire them, especially because you're an adoptive and also, you know, one who advocates for adoption?
Yes, absolutely. No, I mean, I shouted from the rooftops because our daughter has transformed our lives. And I would say, if this is something that you're considering, consider it wisely, go and get good advice, find a really good social worker who can take you through the process, and make sure that you dot all the I's and you cross all the T's. But really pursue it actively and don't allow your fears to get in the way, because honestly, the rewards and the joy, both for your child but also specifically for your family, are so profound that it's worth any amount of pain that you might experience.
All right, ladies, because of time, unfortunately, that's where we'll leave it tonight. But thank you so much for joining us on on Sunday Live tonight. And I'm sure a lot of people have learned so much. We'll also ask you a question right at home. Do you believe that enough awareness is on the ground to ensure that South Africans know as much as they can about adoption? Our results are 70% saying no and 30% is saying yes. So I'm sure that with this kind of information, more and more people are going to have a lot of knowledge as to how they can go about adopting children. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is TV1.